Good morning, and we'll come back and try another daily devotion today. Our daily devotion for today comes from Psalm 97. Now, 96, 97, and 98 are a trio and have been used by the church as the Psalms for Advent for the last, 1,500 years. So Psalm 97 is the second week of Advent, and the two Psalms around it, 96 and 98, have a different theme. That's a little more Christmassy than this one. So let's get into 97. The Lord reigns, let the earth be glad. Let the distant shores rejoice. Clouds and thick darkness surround him. Righteousness and justice are foundation of his throne. Fire goes before him and consumes his foes on every side. His lightning lights up the world. The earth sees and trembles. The mountains melt like wax before the Lord of all the earth. The heavens proclaim his righteousness, and the people see his glory. All who worship images are put to shame. Those who boast in idols worship him, all you gods. Zion hears and rejoices, and the villages of Judah are glad because of your judgments, O Lord. For you, O Lord, are the most high over all the earth. You are exalted far above all gods. Let those who love the Lord hate evil, for he guards the lives of his faithful ones and delivers them from the hands of the wicked. Light is shed upon the righteous, and joy upon the upright in heart. Rejoice in the Lord, you who are righteous, and praise his holy name. So here's our psalm, and the psalm is sort of the quintessential psalm that you would expect if you were pre-Christ, and we were talking about the glory of the Father. So we don't talk about the glory of the Father as often as we probably should. And if you're a Prince of Peace member, our building and our history is such that we don't have one of those enormous brick ornate turn of the century chapels full of stained glass and depictions of the Father in majesty. So we don't get confronted with the art a lot either, the way other churchgoers would, depending on where you go. I'll also say there's bad stained glass out there, just absolutely terrible stained glass, but we won't go there really too much. So verse 1 is sort of an introduction, and it's not disposable. It's going to set the theme for the whole psalm, but it is just sort of introductory. So verses 2 and 3 are really illuminating. So we've got some pairs, and you always should match up your pairs because all three pairs go together. So we've got clouds and thick darkness that are just like righteousness and justice, and then righteousness and justice are just like fire and lightning. And so the idea here is go from the physical manifestation of his person to the actual spiritual, moral person back to physical manifestations. Right? And so we kind of go up and then we come down, and you can use this in a lot of different ways, which is one of the reasons I like Psalms. So there's kind of a zigzag pattern here, which is great, but we can also talk about going up and seeing God and then coming down. We can talk about the world in its natural state and God in his state. And then we can also talk about and reflect goodness and righteousness. Or what is it? Righteousness and justice. There we go. Sorry, I have that list, goodness, righteousness, and truth from Ephesians 5 going through my head this morning for some reason. Righteousness and justice. They're clouds and thick darkness, and they're also fire and lightning. So we think of righteousness and justice as wonderful things. They're things to be proud of, that you are righteous and you are just, and we do a good job. And in a human sense, that's awesome, and it's totally true. Just not in a spiritual sense, right? There's the spiritual sense where God is so much more righteous. He's perfectly righteous, and his righteousness comes off of him like clouds and fire. And again, God is ultimately perfectly just, and justice flows off of him like darkness and lightning. So that's a nice little image, and it should be actually also a terrifying image, because guess who's not righteous or just? Yeah. So All of that work there that we did there is all entailed in this idea. And so the ultimate formation, or the ultimate fruition of all of this is then this verse 5: the mountains melt like wax before the Lord of all the earth, while the heavens proclaim his righteousness, and the people see his glory. So glory is tagged on here right at the end. It's a brand new idea, but you've got all these things: the clouds and thick darkness, righteousness and justice, fire and lightning, and now melting creation. What else is there but glory tied up in that? Well, terror. There's a lot of terror tied up in that, and that's as it may be, because we're human. Okay, so we've got this little bit in 7 here. The those who worship images are put to shame and boast in idols. And then over here, we're going to jump over to verse 11. Light is shed upon the righteous, and joy upon the upright in heart. And so we've got the end too, the bookend. Rejoice in the Lord, you who are righteous, and praise his name. So why is this an Advent? And then why are we talking about it Christmas in July? Well, no, it's not July. Why are we talking about it at the end of June? Well, on the one hand, it's never the wrong day to pick Psalm 97. So that's why we're talking about it here at the end of June. Why is it an Advent? Because this was what was waiting for us if Jesus didn't come. So if Jesus does not come, if Jesus is not born of a virgin, suffered under Pontius Pilate, crucified, died, and was buried, let's rattle off the creed for a second, then this is what we get. We are the people in verse 7. Always. Always. And so this is what's coming for us: clouds and thick darkness, fire and lightning, and melting mountains. Not cool. Not cool at all. And so this psalm is this psalm of praise and thanksgiving for the coming of our Lord Jesus. And it's never wrong to praise the Son for his coming, right? Because we have this awesome opportunity to reflect on why we want the gospel. And this is what the gospel rescues us from. So what do we do with this devotionally? On the one hand, well, why certainly we could memorize it. If you're good at music, I've been asking for several years if someone would set it to music. And if you're the kind of person who likes metal the way I like metal, this could be an amazing metal song, right? Verses 2, 3, 4, and 5. Come on, that's just straight metal. Get out the spandex pants and the big. I don't care. We could do some 80s glam metal. It'd be all right. So the other thing we can do is actually do what the psalm says, which is always a good idea. Rejoice in the Lord. And I know as we hit month 4 or month 5 of COVID, it's kind of easy and kind of hard, right? Because there's a lot to rejoice in. Winter is gone. Summer is almost upon us. Again, this week we will have 4th of July coming up, and there's a bunch of things to rejoice in over that, even in the midst of potential human squalor by way of protests and that sort of thing. But we can rejoice in the Lord. I said it's hard, because not everything's open. If you live in Washington, then you have to wear a mask everywhere and always. And life's just hard. And we can't do some of the things, or we're not comfortable doing some of the things. So I get that. But that doesn't mean we can't rejoice in the Lord, and especially the Lord who sends Jesus. Right? There he is. There it is for us. So in verse 8, Zion, which is a spiritualization of Israel. It's not a specific mountain here in the psalm. We're not talking about a specific place. We're talking about all those people who love the Lord and worship him from his temple, and the temple that is his son's body and blood. So we, the Christians, Zion, hear and rejoice, and the villages of Judah are glad. Right? So there it is. There's the psalm for us today, and there's the devotional move to rejoice in the Lord, and to be glad for him, and especially glad that he has sent his son for us. I think I'm going to wrap it up. Again, you can see I'm filming at church. The last one that was successful took 2.5 hours for 7 minutes. So at my house, that would have taken about 14 minutes. So I'm going to try to get this ready and get this up so we can actually have devotions this week. I know. I can hear you. I'm trying. We'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully, and have a wonderful day in the Lord.